Yes. Hello, hello, hello. This is another episode of the Mental Threads podcast. This is episode 94. I'm here with the one, the only Alex Ondraya. If she'd like to introduce herself.
Yes, so I am Alex Andrea. I have started my artistic journey as a writer and a spoken word artist. I've expanded into photography, videography, graphic design, hosting, both in person and podcasts. So I do a lot. I do what I can while I can.
Oh, jack of all trades and everything. That's cool. And currently you're living in Atlanta right now, correct?
Yes, so I'm originally from New York, Mount Vernon, New York, next to the Bronx. Like if I ever claimed to borough, it would be the Bronx.
That's cool.
And yeah, I'm an East Coast girl, so I've lived in a lot of other states prior to Atlanta, but I've been in Atlanta about 6 years.
Oh, nice. And how you liking it down there?
You know, Atlanta and we have good days and we have bad days, but we love each other.
Okay. I've been thinking maybe you'll be having a ball, It's kind of like I see like Atlanta as being like Black Mecca. So it's like I just assume
It
like
truly is. And that's what, at the end of the day, always like keeps my heart. But I feel like in every city I've lived in, including Charlotte, I've always been lucky enough to find the right people and, find out about the types of events you might not see on an app or like on Eventbrite or something. Like it's always like one of those, you got to know somebody and get to the place where you need to be. And I've found a lot of that in Atlanta that made it like my third home, basically.
oh, okay, so that's your third home. I know you say you start from the Bronx, but you lived in other states too. And how long did you live in Charlotte?
So basically, I went to Winthrop University, so that's in Rock Hill, and that's about
Oh,
30 minutes away. So during my junior year, like that fall, that's when I decided I wanted to start an organization, which is called Deaf Poet Society. And that's when I started going up to Charlotte for different spoken word events. So I started at Apostrophe Lounge, then they put me on to Dup and Swat, then I started going out to Reds, and any other time, we needed to like me and my friends, we needed to like cram and study or something, we would go to Amelie's when it used to be 24/7. So I started really like vibing with Charlotte my junior year of college. Then I spent one more year there prior to moving to Atlanta.
oh, okay, that's cool. And when did you graduate from Winthrop?
I graduated in 2015.
Oh, okay, cool. I just graduated from North Carolina Central University back in December.
Congrats. Yes.
Yes. Seriously, out of an HBCU, loved it. Loved every second I spent over there. I mean, I might have my up days and my low days, but the experience was very, very essential for me and my
Right.
success going forward. So it's everywhere I go, I always rep NCCU and stuff. Is Winthrop an HBCU also, or is it just?
It is not. It is, as they would say, a PWI. But for those of us that were people of color there, we would call it Rock Hill State University, when we would basically have like different Greek events and just original events as well. Like there are a lot of people that have graduated from Winthrop that created events and organizations there that happen on an annual basis. So I don't know if you follow Damn It Wesley.
I think I've heard of that name. I'm not sure if I follow him though.
Right. So he's an artist and he also went to Boo, as we call it. And he created the Swagger Jacked event. And it's just so dope how, you put all the right people in the same place and you see what happens. And it's stuck around. It's still going on to this day. And I love that about Winthrop is that even though it was a PWI, we were able to foster a community amongst ourselves and still flourish.
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. That's great to hear and everything. It's always good to get your degree and go to college and everything. I prefer anything that's HBCU, but I feel like if you had a wonderful time at Winthrop, that's great. I think I passed by there. I think my uncle lived not too far from there. I think I'm not too sure because I know he lived next to some university. I think that might have been the one in Rock Hill, and stuff of that nature. So it's just like I understand that you became a writer and a poet. Is there anything that kind of drove you into being to basically like showcasing your skills through poetry and or writing and stuff of that nature? What led you to express yourself that way?
I have always wanted to be a writer since I was little. I started really writing like comprehensively because it's like, kids, they'll write some things and be like, this don't really make sense, but it's cute.
Mm.
I, I think like around when I was 8 is when things really started to make sense. During that year, my father got me a book by Maya Angelou. I still have it to this day. It's a it's an anthology of her poetry. And so
Mm.
between her and I've always been a blurred as well. So during my lunch breaks, often I would go to the library, and I don't remember what led me to it. It might have just been on display, but Shel Silverstein is also one of my favorite poets, and like his illustrations and everything. It's always like just warm my heart. But that's when I started writing poetry. And then I started doing spoken word around middle school.
Mm.
Um, I remember they were having like an open mic competition type thing. It wasn't quite slam, and I didn't really know what slam was when I was like 11, 12 years old, but they
Mm.
had something like that. And that's when I really got into it and started submitting my work to different places throughout high school. I also was a part of a poetry club, and then I went to college, and my degrees are in English and theater, so I double majored um, with a concentration in creative writing as well as visual and performance art. And so once I put those two things together, by my junior year, I was like, I've got to start an organization. I want to see more of this. I need to find my people.
Mm.
And so yeah, pretty much I did that. And like I said, I started branching out to the Charlotte area once I finally got a car. Like nothing could stop me then. I was everywhere.
Mhm.
And that's when I met up with like, Abstracts, the Super Friends, and Granny's Boys and Lovely and Lady V. All of them were like my big brothers and sisters, because at that time I was like 19, 20 years old, and they all like really had, time in and really know like how to model what I wanted to become. Like I remember someone once asked me, they were just like, because I'm also in a business fraternity. So I do a lot of that too. I always try to focus on like, how can we make art more valuable? How can we fix what the business process looks like for that? And it not just be somebody create something and people think, oh, that's cute, you should just be giving it to the world for free. It's like, no, I put a lot of time, sweat, material, equipment, all of that into this. So teaching others how to do what I do and what I've seen others do has always been a part of the foundation for me. And I saw them do that. But like I was saying, someone once asked me, do you have any role models? And I remember my answer was, I hope to become the role model that I wanted to see when I needed to see that. And the world really manifested that for me through them.
Oh wow, that's great, man. It's great when we manifest like our own like circle of friends and everything that share the same interests and like kind of help us grow in a sense. And it's just like I can really like resonate with falling in love with your college city and everything. I know like I'm thinking about moving out of North Carolina to pretty much just stay in DC until like I get my until I get my master's and doctor's degree. And then after
Oh,
my
wow,
yeah, I
yes.
want to go to Howard University. My father goes to my father works at the hospital there and everything. So I'm
Awesome.
pretty much touching base. So I was supposed to move there this year, but a whole lot of plans got kind of thrown into the wind with that. So until then, I'm just focusing on my podcast, and maybe soon, hopefully, I can get back in the studio again and see if I can drop some music again before the end of the year. That would be wonderful. But it's just,
Awesome.
yeah, man, like falling in love with your like college city. I know I fell in love with Durham and Raleigh and the Chapel Hill area when I went out to live to when I went out to go to school at NCCU, and
You ain't pick AT&T?
what? No, I went to NCCU, man.
Right. I was saying that my cousin went to AT&T, and so I was like, I
Oh,
lived in
boo,
Greensboro during
boo,
10th grade. So that's why I was like, what? No Aggie
boo.
pride?
All about that Eagle pride. Beat them in the classic last time. We better
See,
have
Winthrop's the Eagles too, so that's all right. That's all right. We rock
it's
with y'all.
it's all HBCU, so like all my people who go to HBCUs, you're all brothers and sisters to me. So
Right, right.
it's all good on that end. But yeah, like but that area in general, it's like a lot of younger people like in our age group in our 20s and stuff are usually moving into our college cities because it's like that's the town where it's like we kind of really found a lot of us found ourselves, and how there's a whole lot of like opportunities out there. Also, I think Raleigh might be amongst like one of the number one cities to move to in the United States. I think there was one list I saw. So it's just like, like if I had to move back to North Carolina and like if I wasn't gonna move back to Charlotte, it would definitely be Raleigh because I kind of grew up in Charlotte, so it's like you don't want to stay in the same town you grew up in too long. I feel like I'm 24, I'm going 25 next year, so it's just like it's not banging. You know what I mean? It's just
I mean, I don't know
in
about all
my
that. I
city.
always say to
Yeah,
people, you can always go back home because mad people ask me like, why didn't you go back to New York? And it's like I still have family there, so I feel like I can always go home. And
exactly.
there's so much of the world to see. And growing up, I moved around a lot, so it wasn't unnatural for me to move out to Atlanta or to spend some time in Charlotte and all of that. And I grew up like half between the North and South. So I feel very privileged and cultured in being able to have the best of both worlds when it comes to like the nuances and like the traditions and the things you can't always pick up in a book. Like you really just got to spend time there. And so I've always really appreciated that.
Yeah, no, seriously, man. Was it like your dream city, Atlanta, to move to and everything?
It was not. Atlanta was definitely like one of my top five, but I don't think anything's ever going to take the number one spot over New York for me, of course.
Okay, so
But yeah, but Atlanta has always definitely been on my top five of places that I would want to live and buy property. Like growing up, my dad has always said, so my dad's side of the family is from Orangeburg, South Carolina. And I spent fourth grade there for like one whole year. And prior to that and after that, I would spend summers there. So I remember like growing up, just driving along like the pavement, and then you get off that and then you get on a dirt road, then you get off that, then you go through the woods. And then that's where like you see just so many different houses and family friends and all of that. And my dad was always just very adamant. He's like, when you grow up, get you a patch of dirt and you live your life, you enjoy your life. And so Atlanta, seeing the property value here back like during my senior year of college was definitely one of the places I could see myself doing that. It's like feasibly because New York prices has always been high, like since
no,
before I
I
was
bet.
born. But it seemed a lot more feasible in the South for me to acquire that and enjoy my life at the same time.
Okay, well, that's cool, man. It's like, so you plan to get land around Atlanta specifically or just in Georgia?
Just in Georgia, it doesn't have to be Atlanta, but I I would definitely want to be like maybe not
Close to
near the city, but I
close.
could commute. Yeah, like maybe an hour and a half or so of a drive to get to the city when I want to like go out and do something that might not be in the area. Cause I know I definitely want somewhere with land and where it's quiet and I feel at peace and don't gotta, worry about the riffraff that be going on.
Mhm. No, really, for real, man. I feel that. Like, I know, like on my manifestation journal or on my vision board, I definitely like want to achieve like at least like about a good like 100 to 200 acres of land for sure and
Word.
everything. At least in North Carolina, cause like that's where like most of my family settled into, like out of Liberia and everything. So it's like, yeah, this is kind of like the hot spot, Like I was even talking to my uncle like last night where he was talking about like just how like literally since North Carolina is basically like the hotspot, that's where we're gonna have our whole family reunions and everything like that. So
That's
it's
what's
just
up.
like so I could definitely see like maybe getting somewhere like maybe in the middle, maybe somewhere around like the maybe Raleigh, Chapel Hill area, somewhere in North Carolina. That's not too much in the country, but like just a commutable to like a town like maybe a Greensboro or maybe Raleigh, or maybe even Charlotte. Who knows? Maybe somewhere in Rock Hill, maybe in South Carolina area, wherever.
Right. Or
Yeah.
like out in York, because I remember like some of my professors had property out there too, and it was always like it was just mad cool. And I visit now and again, so I could see myself buying like a forever home in North or South Carolina as well.
Yeah.
As like near the border, especially because it's just like I get the best of both. It only takes me 30 minutes to cross the border. Cool beans.
Yeah, just like I be thinking about like Medea's family reunion or something, where they just had that house and they just always came back to that house for family reunions and stuff like that. Like I could see something like that for my family, maybe like a
My
home or
family
something.
actually had our family reunion in Charlotte in 2018.
Oh wow, okay, how'd that go?
Yeah. So I wish I could talk about it, but I actually wasn't there that year. But
Oh
they told me
dang.
that because it was one of those things too, where it's like I didn't feel like I was missing out on much because I also visit my family throughout the year. So it was
Mhm.
more about hearing their reactions. And I love like even with my aunt and uncle, like when they visit me in Atlanta, I'll drive them around and they'll be looking like, okay, how long it take to get to the city? And me being me, I drive them around the country parts.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, y'all need to get more of this, especially since like they're thinking about buying another house in the South too. And so like I make sure like hopefully I'm also not just driving them around, but spending time with them, driving through like the more metro and rural areas because it's like y'all don't get enough of this in New York. I know for a fact. So it's like enjoy the scenery. And we'll be driving around and my aunt will be like, is that a farm? Like for real?
Oh,
And
you,
then
you
like,
you trying to start a farm too on your a new family home?
nah, I don't know about all that.
Okay.
But she's just always surprised, like kind of how like some people, I don't know if you know or how well you know Atlanta, but like some people will say like Buckhead turned to Bankhead real quick. And it's just like that in Mount Vernon too, where it's like you'll be in the hood part and then you'll be driving straight for about 10 minutes. And next thing you know, you in like a gentrified upscale looking area. And Atlanta is a lot like that too. So like I'll be driving them and they'll be like, how far are we from the city? I'm like, about 10 minutes, 5, 10 minutes. And they're like, how are we all the way out in the country? But it's right there. And it's like the South is like that. I love that.
I mean, I think it's pretty cool. It just kind of gets the best of both worlds without having to go way,
Right.
way, way, way out and everything. Like, it's just like, Charlotte, we're in the South and stuff. And like when I say like maybe you had to go like way, way out, like I'm thinking maybe not even like Morrisville. I'm thinking maybe further than that. Like you got to be somewhere like out and about. Like I can't really give an example off the top of my head. Like what's
It's like,
close?
are there hiking trails nearby?
Yeah,
Like
stuff
that.
like
It's like you
that.
don't gotta be in the forest, you don't gotta be like, in the mountains somewhere. But it's like, is it close enough where you could take a walk and breathe and really like, just enjoy nature? But if you wanted to like go grab brunch after the hike, how long is it gonna take you to get there?
Oh yeah, no, I can feel that, man. I ain't never been to brunch before. That's something I need to knock off my bucket list. It's pretty cool. I don't know.
Word, brunching with the right people is a vibe,
No, I
especially in
bet.
Charlotte.
Yeah, cause I be literally cause I've been in this whole group chat, like this group chat and everything called 24 and plus. And it just be people like 24 and plus in Charlotte and everything, and they be putting events like, like freaking brunches and stuff of that nature. I think I interviewed a couple people off there.
Word.
Also, so like definitely like if I have some spare time and if like I'm not trying to get some matters together, I would definitely like, pull up to like brunch and everything. I'm definitely interested in the mimosas and stuff. I don't know that
Yes,
stuff.
for the bottomless mimosas. I would definitely recommend that. That's just it's always like I end up going to brunches after meeting people at other events, but there are brunch events specifically for like networking and I really like that. I appreciate that in both cities, in Charlotte and Atlanta.
Oh yeah, I know. It's just like so. Like I know you spent some time in Charlotte and Atlanta. What's the biggest contrast that you see between Charlotte and Atlanta? 'Cause I know we're kind of like a southern metropolitan cities, but I always feel like Atlanta had the whole like black Mecca type situation going for it. And I feel like Charlotte's kind of growing that black identity a little bit more over time and everything. Well, from your experience, what do you feel like is a contrast, the biggest contrast between Atlanta and Charlotte?
So you just kind of hit the nail on the head. It's kind of both. Because like there are a lot of there is a large black community in Charlotte, but because Atlanta's already known for that, people's mentality about the spaces we're in are different. So like the way they approach things are different, just kind of like how it would be the difference between Atlanta and New York. So I would say like what I get from Charlotte, or what I got from Charlotte when I was there, on a daily basis, is like that tight knit feel to things. Whereas like when you're in a city, you could know mad people, but it's always like you're searching for more. Like, you know, the web can extend even further. And so you're always like looking for these different events. Whereas like when you're in Charlotte, I feel like you can grow a more daily routine or weekly routine of like who you're gonna link up with and just chill. But like when you're in cities like that, that are a little more congested, it feels like there's always something to do. There's always somewhere to go. There's always somebody to meet, depending on like what your focus is as well. And so that was definitely one of my focuses for when I moved here, is like just expanding that network even more, and not necessarily like even, oh, I'm leaving Charlotte behind or I'm leaving New York behind, because that was one of the things that also let me know Charlotte was a home to me and a foundation for me, is when I first moved here, like my very first year, like I started going to this spot called Urban Grime, and I hosted there for 2 years as well. But I remember that was one of my first spots that I hit up, and I would go there on a weekly basis. They had a spoken word event. Um, and so one of the hosts, about 9 months later, he was like, I've been hosting here for about 10 years and I see you doing your thing. You not only come here, but you're out in the community, you're meeting everybody. Would you like to host? And I was like, hell yeah. And his name was Infrared. Or is Infrared. He's still alive. Still alive. But he was hosting there for about 10 years and expanded into some other things like comedy and acting and everything. So he provided me with that platform, and that really opened up a lot of doors for me. And when I tell you Charlotte, like Charlotte family, poetry family was there the next week, it was so real. Like we started linking up, we started putting on independent events for them to come out to. So the Super Friends definitely came out, Queen City Collective. We had an event there. Some individuals that I met at Apostrophe and Up and SWAT, they would just pop up on me. Like even Blues just popped up on me one night. It was like, what you got going on here? And I was just like flabbergasted, because, you know, people say like, oh, I'm gonna visit, I'm gonna come see you. And that might not happen. And I've lived in a lot of places where it's like, I wish that I spent more time with people, because, you know, it's like going off, like when you're leaving school for summer in high school and it's like, oh, we're going to do all these things, but you don't actually see those people to the next school year. Charlotte wasn't like that. Charlotte definitely like kept me close and was just like, I'm gonna see you when I see you. And that's going to be whenever we really wanted to be. We just started planning events and they would come out and I started visiting them as well. Even had like an album listening party for one of the hip hop artists that I know from up there as well. Like he came down to Atlanta and did a poetry feature at Urban Grind. And then we rented out a separate venue and had an album listening party like the very next night. So Charlotte, it's one of those things, like I can keep describing some of the things that happen, but it's one of those like intangible, indescribable feelings where you're just like, love, love and support and foundation.
Yeah, no, it's for real, man. It's just like that's cool that you enjoyed your experience with Charlotte and everything. I mean, heck, I grew up here, so I
I
kind of get
want to
like
hear more
50-50.
about yours too, because it's just like, I know you said you grew up there, so you kind of like wanted to spread your wings and expand more, but do you feel as though you had that same support and foundation there?
I mean, Charlotte is for me. It's just been more like really like you know like how like life is like a box of chocolates. I feel like Charlotte has been a box of lessons for me, to be
Oh,
honest. And I was like, you know, like I'm slowly right now in my adult stage right now, I'm learning to like reconnect with people a little bit more easier now and everything. To tell the truth, like I've always had like issues like stretching like from middle school all the way to high school and everything, because like my mom used to put me in like the predominantly white schools like in Matthews or like in Valentine Plantations area. So it's like, you know,
oh,
it
got you.
was cool at some points, but it was like a whole lot of struggles and a whole lot of discrimination I had to face. A lot of it, in the forms of racism, colorism, elitism, and stuff of that nature, So it's like, having to learn to really overcome that. And that's what kind of led me down my path of wanting to be a poet also, because I felt like that was my way of me actually like venting out in a sense, and it's just like, I felt like maybe it would have been a different experience had I went to maybe Hawthorne or Garinger, or maybe Rocky River like high school, because it's just like, it's not saying I had to be hood, but I feel like it was more like in my lane, because it's like, I live on East Side Charlotte. So it's just like,
Right.
but now I'm being shoehorned in these areas, and it's like I feel like a fish out of water type. You know what I mean? And
I
it's just like,
definitely do.
yeah, it's just like you be seeing some hood people too in the schools also, but it's like it's not like the humble type of hood. I'm not trying to say like I'm hood. I'm just like I'm not too like
It's
you
like
ever
I'm
meet those
hood
people that are just like
adjacent.
too overly like materialistic and everything.
Right,
It's
right.
just like, dude, it's not even that much of a sweat, to be honest. Like they're so focused on status and stuff of that nature. And it's just like, I always had to bump heads with folk like that who were so like shallow and materialistic and everything. Not really me just bumping heads, but them just really having a problem with me and just me not really giving them any type of day. Cause it's just like, like why should I like be bothered by whatever issues you're having with yourself? It's just like, come
Mm,
on. Like that's just I don't know, man. It's just the way I grew up, man. I feel like I just kind of grew up like, I grew up a little bit older, like mentally and spiritually and even in soul. So it's just like, I just kind of felt like,
for
like
sure.
an adult in a kindergarten class. Like a lot of your things and your values aren't the same as what I would value. So it's just like, from then on, I always had issues, trying to navigate between that. But in regards to my relationship with Charlotte, it's just like, I love Charlotte and everything. I love us, like, as the underdog city, because there's not a whole lot of like notable people that come out of Charlotte, you know, and then it's just like not trying to say I'm trying to be that notable person, but it's just that I feel like we're really starting to get things together now in this decade in the 2020s, where it's like by the end of this decade, like I feel like we could really be like on the map, like whether it be like in other types of entertainment or hip hop or music or anything. I feel like it's really just a matter of just really really supporting each other and our resources and stuff in that nature. And I feel like we could really carry through for the rest of the decade and stuff. But until then, we're just gonna have to just keep working hard and stuff of that nature, and that's just it. So that's
So that's one of the things that's like is good and bad about Charlotte and the South in general.
and I keep in mind. So I don't mean to cut up, but we got like 8 minutes. Just let you know. So it's like once we get to
All
like
right.
2 minutes left, just gotta know that we gotta probably cut this off and hop back on just so they don't cut you off in the middle. Just letting you know.
Got you, got you.
Gotta get
Um
6 minutes.
so that's two things that I have like that I reflect on too. And I actually recently had a conversation about that. So growing up, I went to 4 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 4 high schools. And that was split between the North and the South. And so in particular, as I had mentioned earlier, I spent my fourth grade year in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And it was a from what I remember, it was a mixture of students there, but it definitely was like more white dominant. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it came to, and in 10th grade too, I spent that in Greensboro, North Carolina. And during both those years, and it's like, wow, from fourth grade all the way till 10th grade, still facing those same racial and colorist and just ignorant kind of like reactions from students who just sort of like flaunt that dominance of being a southerner and what it means to be a southerner. And so people from out of state, such as myself, like me coming from New York with all of my slang and my different kind of clothes and dressing how I want and having a certain, like, I don't feel as though I've ever been the type of person to like have an attitude toward others. Like I've always been the quiet girl more so, and I've always been the new girl. So that's part of why I'm quiet, because it's just like I'm not finna approach somebody that I don't know like that. So, and, like I did not grow up like fighting people and just different shit like that. So I'm sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on here, but
No,
I don't do it
you're free
often.
to cuss.
But yeah, it's like, I didn't grow up with certain types of issues, but I definitely had to battle those internal and external circumstances of people challenging like my identity and my blackness and who I was as a person. from my accent to the way that I look to the way that, just all of that. And that's actually a part of the business foundation that I developed here as well. It's called Afro Eccentric. And so I trademarked that word last year. And I feel as though a lot of that nurturing came from Charlotte, as you said, being the underdog about things, because when people are underdogs, they're kind of, I feel as though it's just, it's being the minority of the group, of the area. And so they are adamant about who they are as people. And it's just like, there's just certain things about them that aren't going to change regardless of what everyone else is doing. They're not going to hop on just any trend just because it's popping. It's just like, nah, I've always been into this and that's cool for me. And this is what I enjoy. And if you rock with it, cool. And so that's a part of like what really drew me to gravitate toward the people that I do in the spoken word community, because they embrace me with open arms, especially like I faced some of those things at Winthrop as well, where it's just like people want to try you because they're like, well, that's not what Blackness typically looks like. So you're not really Black. Or like you talk like a white girl, or you must be an Oreo. I didn't get none of that kind of shade, from the poetry community in Charlotte. They were pretty much like, we love you just how you are. Where'd you pick that up from? Why you like that?
Yeah. It's the same way at HBCU, bro. Like, no one's gonna be like, "Oh, you sound white." Like, dude, there's all types of Black people go to HBCU. That's why I love HBCU, like, because everybody has a place. So it's like no one felt like boxed out or anything in the way. You just get in wherever you want to get into, but you ain't had to try hard. That was one thing. Unless you want to get into a fraternity, but even that's not even hard. It's just a matter of just like being consistent. Like, I knew a lot of people in Sigmas that I could have joined up with, because I wanted to join Sigmas low key, but it's just like it just became more time consuming, and I didn't think I had the money for it. So it's just like, it's just,
there's always grad chapter, always grad chapter.
I'm definitely gonna join the grad chapter.
Brotherhood is all about who you link up with, not necessarily just the title. That's what I always tell people. It's not about whether you're gonna be this or that. It's about who you vibe with and who's gonna be there for you in the future. And whatever they are, then maybe that's where you belong. And if not, y'all can still be cool. Y'all still friends.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to come back for homecoming, man. Like, I need to get my hotel like mad quick.
Word, reserve it today.
I mean, and it's gonna be around the time. I don't even know if I should even get a hotel, because I know like one of my mans actually that stay there, that still goes to NCCU. Like, I think he still lives in Austin, and they have them big old dormitory hotels. So I might just crash on his couch or something just to save money.
Right. Exactly. And that's how it is when I visit Charlotte now. Literally, I was up there, and someone I met from, and wait, hold on, before I even dive into that story, where we at on time? We want to stop now and then come back?
Yeah, most definitely. And the cool thing, I'm glad you said that, because it's like we got 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So yeah, we can definitely hop on for part 2 of episode 94 with Miss Ondraya and everything. Yeah, so yeah, definitely.
Sounds good.
Just stop the recording right quick. Do you hear anything in the background?
All
right, cool, good. All right, cool. Oh yeah, so you were going on about like your foundations in Charlotte and stuff of that nature. Is there anything else you like to go on more about in regards to your or add to that whole equip of your foundations here in Charlotte, from the poetry slams and the poetry community here in Charlotte?
Yeah, for sure. So similar to what you were speaking on, when it comes to like homecoming festivities, I feel like every time I visit Charlotte, I get that vibe that people from out of town get. And it's like, I'm not really from out of town like that, but I feel like a tourist every time I come back, because I'll meet somebody new every time I'm there, and they'll invite me to something the next day, and then we link up, and it's it's like, oh my gosh, I love this city, I'm gonna move out here. Like, I get that kind of feeling every time I visit Charlotte, and I never have to worry about a place to sleep. So one, because my mom lives there, but two, I've met like a crew of people. Like, I call them the crew, because literally like about 7 of us, like 7 to 10 of us, will, after a show or something, all go back to one of our friends' place, and we're all just chilling, sitting around, vibing, talking about like real shit. And it's one of those moments and a group of those people that I'm lucky enough to remember why I do what I do. And I say that to other people. The best advice that's been passed on to me is always remember your why. Why do you do what you do? And so, three parts to that is my book is called Altars and Affirmations.
Mm.
It is a mini memoir. It has about 4 parts of like a lot of what we talked about today as well, but it dives even deeper into like where I picked up a lot of wisdom from the people I've met on this journey and the people that I've read about in mad books, that the things that weren't necessarily taught me in school, but how school taught me how to find those people. And so it's a lot of Black women, civil rights leaders, politicians, authors, artists, just every genre that might be underrepresented when it comes to Black women being the leader in that. And so a lot of people will think, oh, I don't know about doing that. It might not be for me because maybe they're not going to value my input. Like, it's more difficult, or at least in my opinion, I feel as though it is more difficult for Black women, our work and our input to be valued in spaces where everyone else has already has a seat at the table. But it's so necessary, and I'm reaffirmed in that every time I do research on Black women who have done so and who have paved the way for other Black women to, take that baton and take the helm of that so much further than it was once before. Like I think of how Shirley Chisholm back in the 70s paved the way for Kamala Harris that we have today. It'd be things like that that really remind me of why I do what I do and why it's important for me to stick with it. But so those are 4 different parts in my book, and it's surrounded by poetry that speak on themes of culture, womanism, mental health, and ultimately like perseverance and faith. And when I say faith, I don't necessarily mean religious. I know a lot of people get that tone in my book because that is how I was raised, but I am more spiritual now because I feel as though I've been lucky enough to meet so many different people who have taken the time to explain to me what their culture or what their beliefs are. And who am I to tell them, oh, well, that's not how I was raised, so that must be wrong, So I've definitely grown to be a lot more open-minded, and it helped me shape the way I speak in my work. And so I call it Altars and Affirmations for that very reason, is because it is a book for people to read, and maybe not in one sitting. I feel as though it's the kind of book that you can read while you're going through something. And so it's a journey. And I wrote it in that way where it starts from when I'm younger and growing, and the different lessons you pick up, like that coming of age feel, where when you're trying to overcome certain obstacles and circumstances, that is the time for you to pick up my book, and you can turn to a random page and you might get a poem, you might get a quote, a mantra. I have a page specifically for different self-care therapies that people can partake in. I have a page specifically for hotlines and helplines for mental health consultations. There are a lot of different tools within the book to help people sort of shape their mind in the way that I've been able to not only protect myself from a lot of the harsh impacts this world can have, but also to dig deeper within oneself. Like I have a page that says, are you a testimony or are you a sacrifice? And then there are other pages that will define words from what I research, but people might be able to discuss that with someone else to really challenge like those critical thinking skills on what that means for them and how do they show that each day. And overall, I feel as though the book helps people to discover how to show up for themselves every day. So yeah, it's a lot packed into it. I'm so proud of it, and yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, you should be proud of me. I mean, that's a milestone. Like making a book, that's no easy feat and everything. Like I also have interest in authoring my own book and everything. I already have the ideas down and everything for it and everything. It just stretches from like, virtual reality, black market type situations, kidnapping. You know, it's like a
Right,
whole
right,
thing. I'll explain it to you one other. I don't want to say like on here before someone steal my idea. In a way,
right,
gonna steal
right.
my idea today.
Copywritten, so don't copy me. I
Oh
hear
no,
you.
I can't copy you. You already published your book.
No, it's a Missy Elliott line.
Um, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're definitely intertwined with the early 2000s. Missy Elliott, shout out Missy Elliott.
Word.
But seriously, yeah, man, like to really like publish your own book and everything. You published in your 20s, correct?
So yes, I published it at 28, and that's the other part of what I was gonna dive into as well. So I started a publishing company as well. I have the part of that that I have down pat is workshopping with others and getting them to the level of their work being what first and foremost copywritten, well researched, well thought through, so that you're not just putting something into the world and then you regret it 20 years later. I definitely love material that ages well. So people can't just send me any old thing now and be like, oh, Alex, can you give me feedback on that? Because I'm not gonna lie, I do know that I can have a fierce pen. I'm not mean, but I am very detail oriented where I'm just like, can you see yourself, especially if you're a spoken word artist? Like I feel as though there's poetry and material that's meant for page, and there is poetry and material that's meant for stage. And not everybody knows that fine line between both. And I do have like not only the educational experience behind that, but the firsthand experience with that on how does this translate to someone else? Because once you give your art to the world, you can't dictate how they're going to perceive it. And not only your art, but also you as a person, because that's the kind of time we live in where a lot of people can't separate the art from the artist. So I definitely try to paint a bigger picture for people and get them to dig deep into the material, that the different subject matters that they write about. So my publishing company is called Odyssey Publishing because I definitely, one, as an English major, we tapped on different parts of the Odyssey because the Odyssey is long. It's 24 books long. It's an epic, you know? But a lot of the themes throughout that story and overcoming hardships, like it's like bro went through a war and then it still took him 10 years to get home.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
so and so I
yeah.
think about how that translates to our everyday lives where we have these different goals and milestones we want to meet, but you know, just a lot happens along the way. And since I've been in Atlanta, it has definitely happened to me in so many different sectors, like mentally, emotionally, financially, like everything hit me. And it felt as though I still had all of the tools I needed
Mhm.
to overcome a lot of those obstacles due to the different people I met on my journey. And also because like I practiced it in school. Like I I like to acknowledge the fact that what we call university today might not have been called that way back when, but my grandmother went to a training school. But for all intents and purposes, my family always told me, like, once I became a teenager, they're just like, so you think about going to school? Well, all right then. And then when I finally got in, they're just like, oh shit, like you're the first to go to university. So
That's
when I
dope.
graduated, that meant a lot to me. And I like put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. Like I worked 3 jobs, if not more, throughout my entire college experience. If I wasn't at work, I was in a meeting because, you know, I either started an organization or I was a part of a lot of organizations. Not or both. I made sure I was definitely involved within my community. And so a lot of those skills when it comes to work ethic and being open-minded and figuring out not only how to learn something or how to teach myself something, but also how to apply it so that I know it's really real. Because I feel like some people just absorb information and take it as fact. And it's like, nah, things ain't always like that. Nothing is linear in this life. So for a lot of the different obstacles and issues I've had in Atlanta, I feel as though I've been on, because I wrote my book in 2020. And so it was like, damn, I started my college journey, my college career in 2010. And here it is, 2020. I'm producing my first book 5 years after I've graduated. This has been my odyssey, and I have a lot to say about it.
That's good.
And so, yeah, that is why, my book is written the way it's written, and why the material that I chose to focus on, the subject matter I decided to focus on in this one, is the way it is, but also why my publishing company is called that and my consulting agency is called that, because I feel as though the different people I meet, they might have been at this for 10 years before they ever met me. And so it's like, here I am joining their journey, and what are the obstacles we're up against, and here's how we're going to overcome that. So yeah,
man,
Odyssey Publishing and Altars and Affirmations have been my babies for the last 2 years.
That's wonderful, man. It's cool that you actually took off the Greek myth of Odysseus and everything, and like him trying to make it home. Cause I'm a real deep Greek fanatic, Greek myth fanatic and everything. To even call your whole like publishing company like Odyssey Publishing, that's really
so
really
but
cool.
the way because I got to trademark it as well. So that's my second trademark. My first trademark is Afro Eccentric, and that was about a year-long process. And so then once I finally figured out what all the requirements were and stuff like that, because it started with the copyright, so I went through the Library of Congress copyright process first, and then I thought of Afro Eccentric when I was thinking of like a brand name, which is something separate in and of itself as well. That's for like future use, but it's one of those things that we say to people all the time, like, don't put it off until tomorrow, what you could do today. And it's like, I might not have really utilized it in the way that I want to yet, but I know I'm going to. So I went through the process and then found out the trademark process could be anywhere from 3 months to a year long. And because I thought of it during March of 2020, everything got backed up because of the pandemic and everything. So I did Afro Eccentric. And then when I thought of Odyssey, of course, I was like, okay, I know I need to make it something distinct. So how do I make it stand out? And so I spell Odyssey with 2 D's instead of one, like the original, epic.
That's still
so
cool.
Yeah, because it's like, it's odd. Everyone is coming into different paths and careers and goals from a different like lens, so to speak. Like I like to use the photography metaphor as well. Like everyone is viewing life through a different lens and through different experiences that I have to take into account before I can really work with them as a client. So I definitely try to set that open space, that open floor for them prior to diving into a project. It's like, okay, where am I meeting you at? Can we really come to a meeting of the minds? And when I work with you, or I'm doing work for you, such as graphic design, or even just doing photography, I want to make sure that I'm capturing the right picture, or that I'm helping somebody else paint the right picture for their audience.
Yeah, that's really really cool, man. It's like if I were to consider publishing a book with somebody, it's okay if I can publish my book with you.
Well, send me your material. We could talk about it. For sure.
I ain't started yet, but it's like I'm already gonna break it. I'm already broken down what the characters are and everything. It's just really just a matter of just trying to break down every chapter and how many chapters I want to post.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's like it's still gonna be a process, but I'm gonna definitely consider you and everything because I always try to work with Black-owned people as best I can. My next job. I like my last job and my next job is I'm trying to work. I only work within Black-owned home care agencies and stuff. So it's just like I'm gonna be working as like a marketing specialist for the next home care agency I'm working for called Abundant Love Care and everything.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet with her on this Friday and everything to discuss payment and everything and all the other stuff. So when I find some time tonight, I'm definitely gonna make a list of things I want to push forward with. Like I graduated from the business school with a focus on marketing, so that's basically like
that's amazing. I'm gonna be hitting you up too. I might need some advice, like, hey, what's going on nowadays? How do I get this to the right people?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
it's still a step-by-step process. I'm still trying to
Right.
learn how to do things and everything of that nature. Before I left the last home care agency, I was trying to implement a Google Forms and everything to try to get more clients and everything easier through a link. So we could send a link out instead of them trying to call on the phone and us getting their information little by little. They could just answer everything in the poll and everything, and then we can just get their information off that. All we had to call for is their social security and their Medicare number. So it's just like, I was trying to break, and I didn't know what to do like with Google Forms before then. I just pretty much got on and I just did it. And then like, that was just it. It's just all a matter of just setting up your time right. And like, so like with this home care agency, I might implement something like that, maybe add some more Google ads, just stuff of that nature. I definitely want to push a YouTube channel. I wanted to do it for the last one, but I never
Yes,
made
for
it.
sure. Monetize it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Not just monetizing, but it's just like, like if like for home care agencies, I want to be able to like bar services and stuff of that nature. We could probably just set up a situation where we can like run a testimonial for like, our clients and our employees from CNAs and PCAs and tell them like, how good has it been working with and being taken care of, abundant love care, explain what their experiences was, what their life was beforehand and how we improved their lives and stuff. Things of that nature. People like visual ads when it comes to stuff of that nature. So it's like, hey, maybe I could recommend my grandmother. I can recommend my cousin or whatever. He has issues. He needs an internal nurse and stuff of that nature. It's like, just stuff of that nature. It's just I always want to be able to work within the sphere of Black-owned businesses because I want to be able to really thrive within this decade. I feel
For
like
sure.
we can really, really thrive and provide more opportunities for others. It's like no more complaining about racial stigmas on during the workplace or stuff of that nature. Oh, your hair's too kinky or stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah.
like I'm not trying to say
It's
that's
like it's sad that we still have to, battle certain things like that in court in 2022. It's like, really, y'all?
yeah.
Really?
It's just sometimes it's just better to just work within your sphere. I ain't never had an issue at a HBCU. You know, all my issues was just more like just opposed to other things, but really
It's
it
a
was
bit of
just
both for me. Like you
yeah.
said, like working within your sphere. I definitely take a lot of the challenges that I had in my adolescence when it comes to interacting and socializing with uh, people that aren't of color, or even other people that are of color. Like they could be Indian, they could be um, Hispanic, whatever, and being in their spaces and showing them what my culture looks like to me and
Mm-hmm.
having them hopefully, come to or already have a respect for it or demand it because it's just
Mm-hmm.
like I definitely don't want it to be so much that okay, yes, we support each other and we're around each other, but the rest of the world continues to get away with erasure because they don't know what something looks like or they don't respect what it looks like or what it could be. And so I definitely don't mind, I guess, being one of those people that's just like, if I have the opportunity to be in a room where I'm the minority, okay, cool. And I will be the representative of that day that says you ought to respect other people how they are and, do away with your biases and preconceived notions of what you think it is.
Yeah, and just the way how like we've been set up in the media and just things of that nature. I had my first job at Compare Foods, and you know what Compare Foods is, right?
Oh, yes, compare.
Yeah, man, I had to work as a busboy there, and the type of racial stigma I had to deal with.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I
it's
would bag
it's
up people's
hard.
stuff, and they would just call
Yeah.
me El Coloroso. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Oh, you don't speak Espanol? I'm like, nah, but like I can't read between that. Like, and you'd be wondering who you
Right.
could like complain this to, but it's like you're complaining it to like the same people. Like it's just like they don't care and stuff of that nature. I don't want to like shit on that job or whatever. I feel like I learned a lot and everything, but at the same notion, it's just I feel like
But
we
you
always
never
seem to.
know who you might meet along the way when you do have different battles like that. And I put that in my book as well, where I'm just like, there are people I have met that I trust to or have seen in some way, shape, or form stand up for me when I wasn't able to stand up for myself. And
Well,
that's so necessary. It was necessary during the civil rights movements. And I say that for like the LGBT community as well, where I've always been an ally of theirs. And
yeah.
so like when I'm talking to relatives or friends who don't, I guess, respect that, and it's like, what does their lifestyle have to do with you? Unless it comes down to standing up for them being able to vote or being able to for them to get married, or being able, just to have basic human rights.
And
Like
they're
I've
still
always been
human
that kind of
beings.
person.
Whatever
Right.
you
I've
like is
always
what
been
you
that.
like. It's none of our business and everything of that nature. And it's just like it's better to be on the non-aggressive side of history, because I feel like we're at a stage now where they're trying to really stop teaching like all the racial aggressions that happened back in Jim Crow
They are
and slavery
definitely
era.
watering
And
it
it's like,
down.
why are y'all trying to do that? How are we supposed to learn from it if we just
Erasure.
constantly, yeah, and it's like that's really like weird that people like really take the power. Like you feel uncomfortable for the things you did when you were like in your 10, 20s and everything that you knew was wrong, and like now that your grandchildren got to learn about the type of pricks you were, now you want to act scary over it. Like, no, own up to it now. Just act like
I
you grew
love
from it.
watching Henry Louis Gates documentaries, covering like finding your roots and the different people that he interviews for that as well. That's a really good series.
Oh, you mean the one where they had to check their ancestry and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you see the one with old dude Anderson Cooper and everything? Or you realized that one of his ancestors was like a slaver or slave master?
Oh yeah, because I had read up on him separately as well. Like I'm one of those Google people. Like I get lost down wormholes of Google and Wikipedias, and then whatever the links are on Wikipedia, I'll go to that site, and I'm just reading up on people and what their histories are, what their families have been into. And I'm like that with companies as well. Like if I'm, lucky enough to get an offer from a company, it's like, all right, but what are y'all really involved in? What do y'all do? Because I know there's just certain things that I don't support and don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, no, I feel that his ancestor was a slave master or whatever, and he can't. His ancestor can't. Life came to an end trying to fight a slave, and the slave like killed him with a rock and everything. And literally, this is how you know his growth. It's just like, wow, that's crazy. It's like, aren't you sad? It's like, no, that's what he deserves and everything, because it's just like, it just tells you like times are always gonna change, and it's just like, it's just one of those changes in life. It's just better to just not be on the aggressive side. Whatever your beliefs are, whatever, like
don't oppress other people, period.
Yeah, Jesus taught us to be good to all and treat everyone neighbor like, as if you were to treat yourself. Like treat everyone like the way you want to be
the
treated.
Golden rule, exactly.
And like literally, like they ignore that every time. Like y'all bring y'all signs saying like saying like God hates this, God hates it. Like who are you to speak for God? Like you're not a prophet. You're just follower. Just live in kindness. Show kindness, and that's it. That's all that matters. Like y'all really they bastardized the whole Christianity aspect and just like use it to like oppress and hurt others, and it's just like that's not right. That's just
different religions are definitely used as a tool to control people, because it's like, well, do you want to get into heaven if now you're gonna burn in hell? And that's the other thing. Like I try to be not necessarily neutral. Like, well, I guess no, I'm saying it wrong. I'm thinking about this wrong. You said to be on the non-aggressive side. I try to be on the neutral side, where I realize how some people got into what they're doing, whether that's good or bad. And I definitely try to choose the path of fairness. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, just being fair, just being neutral, just being respectful to others.
Because it's just like everything ain't always gonna go somebody's way, but there is a better way to do some things. No, I think that's how I'm trying to say it. Like things ain't always fair, but it could be more fair. If that makes sense.
No. I feel what you're saying. I get it just what you're saying, but it's just like but there are boundaries though. Like I know it's just like
for sure.
I feel like they're pushing. I don't know if you check my story about like the whole situation where it's like they're trying to switch the term pedophile to minor attracted persons.
I did see that video. Yeah, shit like that is just flat out wrong. Yeah, it's like nah.
That's got to be a no. That's being a predator. That's not being like attractive or anything.
Words mean things, and call it what it is.
But it's just like that's what it is. You have a certain like feeling, when you have a certain interest in children, that's just not
highly inappropriate.
That's highly inappropriate. It's just like no, you can't condone that stuff in nature because they're not old enough to make that decision.
It's like I might want everyone to have basic human rights and like access to healthcare and different things like that, but I don't necessarily condone everything that they might want to do. However, that does not give me the right to interject myself in whatever battles they might be facing. It's like, all right, that is something you want specifically for y'all, and that's your battle to fight. But if it's something that I as a human being have, and it's just like it's something that all human beings should have, then I'm definitely fight for that.
Yeah, no, certainly, for real. And it's just like, this is selfishness with that. And it's just like, like when it comes to representation, like even racial, like just even showing like even like positive, shown in a positive light with like, figures like a Black Panther, or like in the Coming to America with like the whole kingdom of being put in like a good light. Or even like in the Michael Jackson Remember the Time video that had like Eddie Murphy as like the pharaoh and everything, and everybody was just that was like the first of its kind. So we're still even to this day
Exactly.
trying to fight for
The
that
golden
business.
era.
And it's like you got to really clap for people like Tyler Perry and everything. Running his own
I mean,
his own company.
and see, that's the thing. It's like I might like what Tyler Perry has done for the community. However, I do not necessarily like all of the content that he has put out and how it represents Black women, especially.
Oh,
It's
really?
like two things can be true at the same time for some things. I feel as though he has, because I grew up on Tyler Perry, like back when he
like
was on off Broadway, but I feel as though when it comes to his script writing and for big films, he definitely got lazy over time, and he sticks to certain tropes that has shown it negatively affects the image of Black women, and it perpetuates a lot of the issues that Black families face. And it doesn't necessarily give commentary that helps to resolve those issues. It just keeps showing the same image. And I feel as though he could do better when it comes to that.
Honestly, especially with
but
like
I still respect
definitely.
he is,
Definitely
how
sure.
and where he has gotten to where he is. But I do know and believe that he could, if not could have done, that he still could do better.
He could switch it up just a little bit. Not even going to lie. I would like to, because I know you had Dyra, Black Mad Woman, but let's like try to see the perspective of like from a Black man and just kind of see like what his issues with and
it's like, how did we get here exactly?
Yeah, like let's just speak on both perspectives and everything. I know he was kind of criticized for like showcasing I think there was like an episode of the Boondocks it was like showcasing like how like he always picks like when it comes to picking like the love interest for the main character,
it's always light skin.
Oh no, always a light skinned dude.
With the bad
I can't even
grades.
remember the last time he picked like a dark skinned guy. Like I think it was just like light skin.
And if it is it a bad person?
Yeah.
Like exactly, it perpetuates a certain image that we've already been trying to deconstruct through the use of other forms of entertainment. And that's why I've always gravitated toward the way things are expressed in art and what is shown and represented, because if people don't see it, it's hard to believe that they can also be it, how they say. So I've definitely always been adamant about that.
And the breath of fresh air was Daddy's Little Girls, because it was like, it's like it was from a different perspective this time.
But then does the mother have to be strung out on drugs in the movies?
I mean,
is that why they're daddy's girls?
Like, I mean, no. The mother wasn't strung out on drugs, but the mother
there's always a hook with Tyler Perry.
Yeah, but it's like that's just it does reflect certain issues in the Black community, So on that part, I can really like defend him to kind of showcase like.
But how many productions has he produced at this point that a majority of it still leans toward that same trope? And is it helping or hurting the community? And the community is saying, bro, come on now. And what is he continue to do? That's what I'm saying.
What do you think in your own words? Like what tropes do you feel like he needs to start showcasing, or perspectives you feel like?
I mean, what I mentioned before, and that's the thing, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, that is his time and his money to do with what he wants to do.
Oh, surely.
Right? So all I can do as an individual is not support the ones that I don't necessarily agree with, that I hear about or read reviews about, or the plot about, where I'm like, okay, do I agree with this? I just think there's a different approach, there's a different lens that things could be cast through that uplifts us more so than it serves as like what do they call it? A minstrel show, how they say.
I mean, heck, I guess I could see where the minstrel elements rely on as timeless as the character as a Medea or a Mr. Brown or even a Joe would. Joe has me cracking up with the movie. Sorry, it's like Joe be the main character that has me laughing, but it's like, but yeah, but still you got to give Tyler Perry his flowers, and he's still pretty young. Like,
For
you can still make
sure.
more plays
Absolutely.
and more movies and everything to give leeway and more representation to all types of perspectives and everything of that nature. How do you feel the production goes? What are you feeling on the production on the show Atlanta?
Bro,
The last
don't
5
even get me started. I can talk about Atlanta all day. I
Okay, but
love that
it's
show.
generally positive from your perspective.
I feel as though, I mean, this is from emotional memory more so than like remembering the script, but I do feel as though Atlanta as a whole, the show has definitely provoked different discussions. And that's just Gambino in general, just him as a person, let alone an entertainer, let alone like a producer or a scriptwriter and everything. I feel as though he has been one of those representations of what something could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
it's not only just like as a Black man, but also like within a community and within certain circumstances and situations and scenarios that other people find themselves in, but maybe don't talk about. And you see a lot of that throughout the show, to the point that it's so surreal, and yet it's just like, nah, this really be happening. Like, he knows how to take it just far enough for some episodes, and then there are some episodes that I feel like might could have been approached a different way, but it's like, who am I to say? It got me at least thinking about certain things and talking about certain things. So I really enjoy the way they produce that show, on top of the fact that it's not just him directing and writing certain episodes. It be from different perspectives of the other actors as well.
yeah,
So I
no,
think that's
seriously.
really cool.
Yeah, no, really, like, it's crazy how his show pretty much what's that word? Like, pretty much predicted the whole Juneteenth place and situation, and literally, even when the whole fake Drake situation with the whole people just came to the place just to take pictures of a
Like how
cutout.
people treat celebrities nowadays.
Not
Yeah.
not just that, but just like how like people like will literally get fake Drake and like fake Chris Brown to show up for a meet and greet and everything, and how like it's just like people would still even show up for events like that.
Wow.
It's a
I can't
reflection.
believe this is gonna be their last season. I'm
Yeah.
heartbroken.
Well, this is the third season, right, or is it the fourth?
It's gonna be the fourth one. I
Damn,
believe
the
they
fourth is
said
the
it'll be
last
the
one.
last. Yeah.
And it would still be a damn good show because it kind of started with the whole YouTube video clapping for all the wrong reasons. Have you seen the YouTube video of Childish Gambino clapping for all the wrong reasons?
No, I gotta check that one
Good,
out.
wonderful, great. Check it out. Look up Childish Gambino or Donald Glover clapping for all the wrong reasons. That's basically
Will do.
the precursor to Atlanta. If you really enjoyed it in Atlanta, definitely check that out. Like, it makes me want to be like go into acting and then videography on that end
Word.
and stuff of that nature. No,
Thank you.
seriously,
Putting
because
me
it's so
on.
nuanced. There's so much nuance with it. And it's
Exactly.
just like, it just makes like, wow, you can
You just
really
got to
like dive
rewatch
into
certain
that
episodes
universe.
too, where it's its own world,
You can
without
dive
being like,
in.
oh, this is how Atlanta is every day. It's not like that. It's like, it just be the hijinks and scenarios of it all. And then even with them traveling to Europe and seeing things from that perspective, I think was really cool. But then they'll bring it back and they dive into like the history of Lake Lanier and why Black people shouldn't be out there during summertime, or any time really for that matter, or anybody. It's different things like that I like, how he's able to branch out but then bring it back in, branch out and bring it back in. Like,
Yeah.
it's a really good show. It's well
Yeah.
produced.
It's great. It's crazy how like some writers like us can really delve into can really like gel on the understanding of how important Childish Gambino's contribution is. And yeah, we'll definitely look back on it like a decade from now and be like, wow, he really was an all rounder. When you think about it, comedian,
But
musician,
that's
something
also
like
because
that.
he started from early YouTube days when it came to sketch shows. I think that helped him so much. Like even before he got on Community, like I remember watching something where he talked about, he was just like, it's just people uploading videos to YouTube on the internet, like back in the early 2000s. And he and some other people, they dived into that. So getting people to really delve into, like you said, like delve into a universe in that way, and yet it's just like everyday shit. It's some type of technique, and he got it.
Yeah, it
He
all
be
starts
doing
with
it.
consistency, man, and that's definitely
Yeah,
something. But I know we got like less than like 2 minutes and everything. Just gotta be
I
able to wrap
know.
it up. I just want to say, if you got any like last words to let the audience know before we go off for episode 92, you're free to do so.
For sure, for sure. So, as I mentioned, this is my first book, Altars and Affirmations. If you need some type of text that is filled with affirmations, some relatable experiences, some poetry, some resources to help you get through or over obstacles, this is definitely a book for you. It can be purchased on my website, which is alexondraya.com. I also have a publishing company, things that are registered with the state, y'all. Like I did my homework, I'd be doing my things. And you need like workshop and financing options and things of that sort. That can also be on my website. Odyssey Publishing, Odyssey Consulting, if you need services for photography, videography, graphic design, or coaching and help on forming your own business, definitely hit me up for that. I will have a website for that coming up soon, which I will post on my website and on my social medias when it is finished. And just in general, if you would like to collaborate, if you have events coming up, if you would like me to be a feature, I featured in, goodness knows, so many different places, like over 50 locations by now. So
Got less than
just
1 minute.
definitely
Just
let me
letting you know.
know.
Just letting you know, Miss Ondraya. I know we can go
No
off
problem.
early.
Yeah,
I
no,
just don't
that's
want
all.
to
That's
cut you
all.
off, and I'm going to have been rude and everything. Just let you know. But yeah,
No,
because we
you're
got less
good.
than a
That was
minute.
it. That's everything.
All right, cool, wonderful. Thank you, Miss Alex Andrea. This was a
Thank
wonderful
you for
episode, wonderful
inviting me.
conversation. No, seriously, but that's it for episode 94 of the